Welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. This is the podcast where we help you challenge your mindset and discover where you are. Tired of stories about other people's success? We can help you change your life, determine your time freedom point, and join us on the journey to financial success. Let's go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ideal Investor Show, where we bring you great guests that have some connection and affiliation to real estate investing, more or less. Today we have more of real estate investing affiliation, and we want to give you as much information to learn what are the different opportunities to go on the journey of investing, and ultimately, as we do at Ideal Wealth Grower, reach the time freedom point where you have the freedom to decide what you want to do with your time. So to talk about that today, we have an awesome guest. Brian Grimes is with us. Hi, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for making the time. So before we get going into the details of what you do and how you do it, Brian, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us how you got to where you are, what's your background, and how did you end up in the work you do these days?
I'm Brian Grimes. I'm a Columbia University graduate, econ major, former financial planner, still a CFP, certified financial planner. Really what I would call like a serial entrepreneur, but just someone who's fiercely independent in thought, in investing, and just wanting to kind of be your own boss and kind of do your own thing and call your own shots. So I started off like most people working a 9 to 5. The only wrinkle being, my first job was 100% commission right out of college.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
it's probably like a 90% failure rate there. I think I made $6,000 in commissions my first year of working. So it was like paying to work. But it did give me the freedom to keep an eye on the real estate market. And as I started to get better and hit bigger commissions, all of that money, I was essentially saving maybe 30-40% of every check was going into a separate account to invest in real estate. So I did a house hack in Philly in my backyard. And then I bought a property in Baltimore and then Jersey. And, before you know it, 5 to 7 years later, I had hundreds of properties and was doing full gut renovations, remotely from out of town. And I've just kind of never looked back. I transitioned out of the 9 to 5 into real estate full time in 2017. So it's been some time now and just really never looked back.
Okay, yeah, and that's a super interesting story. And I'm sure our audience members will especially kind of check in or hack in or whatever you want to say, dig into this one little side sentence that you said it as if it were nothing. And I think this is one of the most amazing things. How do you do, just in general, how do you do a gut renovation from afar? Can you give us a little bit of a taste on how that actually works?
Yeah, I think one of the beautiful parts about just being alive right now is the technology that we have at our fingertips. Even some of the applications that exist today, 5 years ago, didn't exist. So we're constantly being given these tools that allow us to invest at a higher level and remotely, to manage more with less. So it's really about systems. What I found, I started like most of us, which is even if you're investing out of town, you do it somewhere where it's like a 2-hour trip each way, 4-hour round trip. Then there's gas, the lunch. So it's about 5 hours out of your time. And I'm going down from New York to Philly twice a week for like a year. And I can see 4 properties at once. But then when you try to do 8 deals at once, which you're going to scale if you stick with this long enough, I started to realize I was still just seeing 4. I'm driving down, I'm seeing 4, I'm not seeing 8. And it was because you're still getting pulled in a million directions. So I started to set up systems, boots on the ground inspectors, different forms of technology in their hands, video-based walkie-talkie systems, so that I can now see. I essentially become, from being a flight pilot, a guy who's flying a plane, to air traffic control, sitting behind the command station and controlling 100 planes at once. And it kind of, taking that philosophy, I started to now be able to see 30 deals at once under construction from behind the system that I was building versus getting in my car and physically going. So there's only so much value in physically being there for the real estate. That value will kind of leave, I would say, after year 1 or 2, or after you learn the critical mass of what you need to know in the real estate game. And then all of the value becomes everything that you can solve remotely. How can you add value to the contractors? How can you coordinate better? Solve materials and supply issues, create warehouses and program them out so materials get to the job faster. Um, Coordinate with different city inspectors and handle permits and those different bottleneck issues. That's more valuable than you standing over the shoulder of a contractor who's been building houses for the last 40 years. You're not going to know more than them. And or be able to help them solve their problems in that way. So you have to fill in the gaps for your company, and that
Right.
will allow you to accelerate.
Understood. So let's start with the first part that you mentioned and then maybe peel the onion a little further. You said, see the property. Now, for
Mm-hmm.
me, having done real estate for a while, before you can see something, you have to identify it. So maybe you can tell us a little bit, what do you do? What kind of sources do you have, if you don't mind sharing, to
Yeah.
define properties? And then obviously to say, okay, out of what is out there, this is how I find properties. And then how do you actually see them? Like, and you mentioned a little bit of how you do that already, but how do you find them in the first place?
Yeah. So most people, when you're a new real estate investor, you think, oh, well, there's got to be like some secret sauce or this magic source that we can go to get the best deals. They're all off market. None of the good deals are on the MLS. Well, 91% of the deals that move in America move on the MLS. So
Right,
if you cut out the MLS, you're going to cut out a lot of good deals.
right,
So I believe in looking everywhere. So I'll set up, my system is called like a boots on the ground system. So I'll have a guy wherever I want to invest. Let's say, Brian, you should go invest in Little Rock. Okay, so I'm going to hire some college student in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm going to put a smartphone in their hand if they don't already have one. And then I'm going to connect them with a realtor. We're going to train a deal analyst remotely to kind of sit behind a screen with me to pull comps, run numbers, build rehab budgets, and screen through everything: on market deals, off market deals, auctions, online auctions, physical auctions, whatever we can get our hands on, wholesalers and wholesale deals. We
right,
can set up funnels and go directly to sellers as well with Facebook ads that are like, we buy houses cash as is. Want a cash offer? Fill out this form. So I'm literally going to every source so that I can create abundance. Then we will sift through that abundance. If we look at 100 deals, we might find 10 that meet a good criteria for cash flow or flipping. Then we will send out the boots on the ground inspector to go take videos of those properties, kind of check them out, get back to us with the information. We can build the rehab budgets. And then we know if we can get it at this price, we can make a profit because we know the cost of construction. And that's really the veil that needs to be removed for a new investor: is what's the cost of construction? I've done over 300 full gut renovations, so I know it intimately.
right.
But once you know that, you can do whatever you want. You can reverse engineer.
Yeah, understood. Okay, so quick question on that. I mean, the boots on the ground deal and having just somebody who looks for making a few bucks by doing something relatively simple. And I mean, when you say MLS, I would say then if you find something that looks promising, you just hook your boots on the ground together with the agent to get into the place and take a video. Is that right?
Yeah, and the speed of that system is what allows you to win. So the average person who's investing, they're doing it from the 9 to 5. They can't get
Oh
out
yeah,
to a
yeah, yeah.
property
No,
until the weekend.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
the
no,
speed kills.
no, you're right. Okay, so you have your now you use the term inspector, and I wanted to kind of just make sure: are you truly mean somebody with inspection background, or is your inspector just somebody you told, look at this, look at this, look at
I think there are levels to it. So let's say you did one, you wouldn't want to take the volume portion of that and put it to somebody with all of the experience. The person with all the experience is what? More expensive, which means you don't want to use them at volume or your system's going to break and or be too expensive. And you don't want to bring them in on everything because it would be a waste of time. So
that.
you would want
Well,
to get somebody. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
my thinking was, and maybe I'm overthinking it, if you and I were to work together, right? Like I'm on the investor, and you know exactly how to do this stuff so far that we have touched on. I would wonder, wouldn't it make sense that if you take this example with Little Rock, right? Like, let's just stick with that. Um, that you develop relationships with a few people who would actually ultimately be interested to do the renovation. They probably have quite a bit of experience on, what is
Absolutely.
the status of a house. So when I hear inspector, I mean like what like normal lenders would require for like a home inspection and appraisal and that kind of stuff.
No.
Versus I actually have worked, like, admittedly in California, but I don't think the location is that different, with a really nice, happy handyman who didn't do full gut renovation, but he could fix most of the things. And if something went a little beyond what he would be comfortable with, he had all these other connections of other people who he brought in, and he
Yeah.
managed them, so I didn't have to do anything. And I don't want to pretend to having done flips or anything like that. But if I said, "Can you go and look at this and how much work it would be?" He is not, and never was, and would probably never become a house inspector or certified or anything, but knowledgeable, plenty knowledgeable enough to say, "Okay, well, this is about this much work, and this is like aluminum electrical, or the plumbing is, lead pipes and what have you," right? Like
Yeah.
that kind of. So I'm assuming what you said with inspector is somebody who is knowledgeable, but not necessarily like a full on like $500 inspector or something like
That's correct. But also, when you bring that person in is important because you can burn that person out. So if you're just looking at 10 deals a month, they can comfortably do that. But
that.
what if you were trying to look at 100 deals a month? Can you get that same guy out there? You probably don't want to, because they're more valuable working on other projects and doing handyman tasks and different things.
Right.
So
Yeah, but
you give that volume to the cheaper guy.
I
And
hear
then
you,
you
but
bring in this person once you get the deal under contract. Then you bring in the head guy to give you that full overview with more experience. So
right,
you would
right.
bring in the more experienced person at a different time, not on the front end, but in the middle of the process.
Okay. Yeah. So very cool. So let's go back real quick, recapping. So let's say we just go with MLS because it's more than 90%. You found a property, burned out or whatever in Little Rock, or maybe a handful, just to make it efficient. And you say, okay, I look at these five, and these three, they could work. How do you then go about, if you don't already have a team, or how quickly can you actually get the boots on the ground to
To
for
build a team,
invest? Yeah, I mean, not the full team, but I'm kind of trying to imagine. Okay, Brian has decided we want to do some work in Little Rock, right? And you want to be air traffic control. I'm a former aviator, by the way, so I love that example of the analogy, right? So um, Brian, the air traffic controller, needs to somehow get people on those three properties that you want to tackle, right?
yeah. I mean, you start through existing relationships. So some good resources if you're just trying to build. Like, would I just run out and do this? I would build the crew. I would build the crew in a different way. I would identify a deal and then build the crew that I want to use through the first deal, and then start scaling the crew. But
Okay.
where I would find a crew, you can go to places like property management companies. They're always going to have
Yeah, yeah,
relationships with
exactly.
different contractors. So you can just start to reach out. Like, you really just need to nest. How I explain it to people is dentists know dentists, doctors know doctors, lawyers know lawyers, and contractors know contractors. So you
Exactly.
just need to find a couple contractors and then play the question game. Hey, do you know a plumber? Well, yeah, I used to work with it. And then you just keep building that referral network, and then bring guys to the property, that first property that you've identified, to get bids. And the bids are going to be better when you have a deal under contract already. Put it on a 60-day close and then bring in the people for the bids. If the deal doesn't work out, just back away. You might walk from a security deposit, but that's better than doing a bad deal. And you will still have built all of these relationships. A lot of us are too short-sighted with real estate. We think, oh, if I lose $1,000 security deposit, I've made some horrible deal. Well, not if you do another deal and make 50K off of that deal. Now you're
Yeah,
up
absolutely.
49,000.
So let's just see, for us to kind of comprehend this, but also make it practical. If we were to pretend, we stick with our Little Rock example, and I were an
Yeah.
investor, and I came and were to say, "Hey, Brian, I'm considering buying this property. It's in pretty bad shape, but it could become something really nice for somebody. Do you have somebody on your team who would be interested to basically make that their property after, like, do the renovation and then either keep it or rent it or whatever they want to do with it?" How would
Yes.
we go from there?
We need to, and the numbers don't lie. You know, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So we need to analyze the deal, right? We need to analyze the deal. We need to look at the cost of the construction. We need to evaluate the property. What condition is it in?
Right.
And then generally, what's the cost of materials and labor to fix this property? How long is it going to take? What type of financing will we put in place? What would be the cost of that financing? Let's spreadsheet this thing out to see if the deal is profitable. And almost every deal is profitable at the right purchase price. So now we need to see, okay, if we buy it at 50,000, it's profitable. Well, they're asking 72. Well, we got some work to do on negotiations. So it's all about having the X-ray vision on the deal. If the numbers make sense and you're putting in fair market construction numbers, you're going to be able to find a reputable crew that can build the deal at a fair market value cost of construction, and then you will make profit on the back end. But it's just about running the numbers and making sure it's a good deal.
So let's take this, and I hear you, and I think this is totally valid and very important to realize. So if I had a place that I bought or could buy for 40,000, but it obviously needs a ton of work, would I then go and say, hey, Brian, I have this place. Can you basically find somebody who wants to renovate it and then own it and run with it? Or how would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that we can do. Like, I have a program, for instance, in Philly. So Philly's one of the markets that I've done arguably the most in over the
Right.
last decade. And I tap people in through my boots on the ground program in Philly. So we literally have people in from New Zealand, Canada, all over the US who are tapped into this Philly market through our program, where we find the deals, we analyze them, we have the construction crews, so we build through them. We have the in-house property management team. We can tenant them, property manage them, and help you to cash flow them, whether you're doing co-living, Section 8, some of the voucher-based housing, or just
Right.
regular market rentals. So it would be setting that up. So if we're doing it for the first time in Arkansas, in Little Rock, it's just about setting up the same systems that work in a place like Philly. You need a construction crew, but you need a boots on the ground person who's not even the handyman, who's not going to do any of the work, who's just a camera person, because
Okay.
you can control them and see what you need to see at a different level. Seeing has multiple powers. It's not just about them having the knowledge. It's truly just about having a physical representation of you that's there. They know you're behind that camera.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
contractors do.
yeah.
So the jobs will speed up. Everything will move faster just by having that one person in your operation. They pay for themselves.
Okay, understood. So if we bring this back to our audience, and myself included in our audience, we are basically investors, right? Like, so if we were to come to Brian and say, hey, Brian, we are investors, we're looking for these properties that are admittedly at the current time run down, and we would either buy them and then have you help us get them in shape and sell them, or we would make them available to somebody who wants to renovate them and we do owner financing, something like that. How would that look like in reality?
Yeah, I think it would look like my boots on the ground program, which is where we do all of that kind of for
Right.
you. So we find the deals, we connect you with the lenders. We have 100% lenders that'll give you all of the capital to acquire and renovate the property. So they'll give you 100% to buy and 100% of the renovation budget. And then we would build through them at a fixed budget. So I like getting the projects bid out, even though I know the cost of materials and labor, enough to just pay the cost of labor directly by the week, by the day.
Right.
Bidding it out shifts a lot of the risk. So typically we would just take our knowledge and then bid it out so that it kind of matches up to what we would pay if we were paying by the day labor. And then pull all the permits, do all that stuff when the job is done. Um, get all the rental licenses and everything pulled, put the tenants in, or if you want to flip it, get it listed, do the virtual staging thing and get it flipped. So it's truly like a soup to nuts full service model where we do everything and connect you, into a major city like Philly. And that'll expand, to other areas, Baltimore, Jersey, Delaware, some different pockets. But I like to do it in kind of some of my backyard cities. Like, I grew up in Philly because I have a lot more control. 100 contractors, warehouse, a variety of different boots on the ground people, full in-house property management. where we can guarantee a level of consistency with the product, because it's the real estate's the people business. So when you're dealing with new people, you have to iterate. You're never going to go anywhere and find the perfect crew. And even if you did have a decent crew, they're not going to be with you 2 years from now. You're constantly iterating. Some people are burning out. You're shifting in new contractors. In Philly, I've been iterating for a decade. So people can just tap into the best, something that literally I paid millions of dollars to build.
Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting, and it obviously makes sense. The more experienced the traffic control team is, the safer it probably becomes.
It's safer. Yeah.
Now you mentioned a few locations, and we started with this example in Little Rock. So is Little Rock or like places like Ohio or Tennessee or any of those places on your list as well, or is it those three or four that you mentioned already?
No, I mean I have resources in Ohio. I've been helping a lot of my mentees to get deals in places like Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati. We do have construction crews out there, and we could run a whole operation out there too. It's just it's quality control, man. It really is quality
Obviously,
control.
yeah.
But no, I have tentacles, there. I have contractors in places like Baltimore, Maryland, Virginia, Texas. We have I have tentacles kind of everywhere. But sometimes I will just be helping somebody to invest, in their backyard and how to set up their own systems. So
Yeah,
it really depends on what people are looking for.
well, and that's exactly why I asked the question, and want to maybe go one level further. You mentioned programs, right? And you just said the term mentees. If somebody in our audience, or if I, for that matter, were to say, I really like what I hear when Brian describes these things, when you say program and mentee, what would people actually be enrolling for or doing or be up for? What would they have to be interested in to take any of those programs? Can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's who you are as an individual. Like if you want to have me kind of build you up to a level. Like, I just want to scale up. Can you give me your systems and work with me one on one? I have a one on one mentorship program where I work with my people one on one. We tap you into course content, but then we do one on one Zoom calls, text, and email support directly with me. And I scale you up. Like, I had a federal judge in Arkansas tap into the program. Within his first, I think, 9 months, he did 10 ground up deals. The
Wow.
next year he did 30. He built like a whole development. And we were just talking about how to scale up in the warehouse and the systems and all these things. And it really accelerated like a ton. And he's a great guy. But then there's the boots on the ground, is like the done for you. So if you just are like, Brian, look, I'm a busy professional, but I have some capital, but I really do want to spend the time with my family. Like, I don't want to get all into this, but
Yeah.
I do want to make sure my money's working for me in real estate. Then we have the boots on the ground program, which is like a reoccurring fee-based model. We don't take ownership in your deal. We don't do any funny stuff. We don't take any kickbacks from any third parties. It's truly just fee for service. I'm on the same side of the table as you, and connecting the dots, helping you to find the right deal that you're looking for. Some people are looking for single family flips. Some people are looking for full gut multifamily, co-living, cash flowing assets. Like, everybody has what they want.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then we just go out and find it and build it for you at a fixed price. Um, and then we will tenant it and kind of do whatever you need to have cash flow in a major city. Philly's the sixth largest city in America. So it's a great sister city. People moving in from New York, prices going up. It's really just a good city,
I thought you
landlord
would say brother sister.
friendly.
Isn't it brotherly love instead of sisterly
It
love?
is, yeah, yeah. It could be a brother city too. Yeah, the city of brotherly love, and it is a
Yeah.
good city. It
Yeah.
is a
No,
good
I
city.
was just kidding. No, that's really good because we have quite a community by now, and hopefully an even bigger audience of people who like basically the Midwest. I don't know that I would count Pennsylvania as really part of it. It depends a little bit where you draw the lines. But you mentioned,
Yeah,
Arkansas, Ohio, Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, those kind of places where there is a certain ratio, and I think that's what I always preach is performance. There's a ratio between what kind of property can I get, even if it's very dilapidated? How much do I need to pay both wages and materials to get it up to speed? But all of that is basically useless if you cannot get reasonable rent or sales price. right? So all these
Exactly.
things are basically in a certain ratio, and that's why, for example, a lot of our folks, like myself included, Ohio quite a bit, because that ratio is pretty healthy there. You
Oh, it's nice.
can get good
Yeah.
money for a good property, and you can still get older properties that you get relatively affordable
Yeah.
to fix up. So
Absolutely. And the
Arkansas, I mean,
rents,
Little Rock is definitely something that I just saw.
it's up and coming.
Yeah, I saw. I don't know if you know Keith Weinhold. He just in his newsletter published that Little Rock got recognized by some study that Forbes conducted as one of the top 10 up and coming cities for like young people and so forth in the
Oh
U.S.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. And I have some of my mentees are really heavily focused in that market.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, it's definitely a good market.
Very cool. So before we get to the last two questions unrelated to our topic, if people say, wow, I would love to be able to keep doing my job and make cash flow with real estate and work with Brian to get this all set up, what do they do? How do they get in touch with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Brian Grimes Real Estate. I'm on LinkedIn, on YouTube.
I can
Brian
attest to
loves.
that. I connected
Yeah,
to you.
yeah, exactly. We connected right before this. Um, Brian loves cash flow on YouTube. Brian loves cash flow. It's easy to remember because I love cash flow. On Instagram, Brian Grimes underscore 247 CFU for the 24/7 cash flow university. TikTok at Grimes Estate. All of these platforms will backlink to a free real estate training on www.workwithgrimes.com/cashflow, workwithgrimes.com/cashflow. Free real estate training. It'll show you how to acquire properties for pennies on a dollar all across the country. You don't want to miss out on that free offer.
Yeah, that's very, very good. And thanks for, and we're going to put it all in the show notes. And that's why we align so well, Brian, because we love cash flow too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So that's exactly the thing. All right, very cool. Well, thank you for sharing this. And I have the feeling I probably have to bring you on one more time in a little bit next year, because there's so much there. I can feel it, and we don't want to spend it all in one episode. So the two
Definitely.
questions I ask everybody, independent of what they exactly do, is if you could meet anybody, who would it be and why?
Geez. Anybody, I would say Robert Kiyosaki. I want to pick his brain a little bit more because he's very elusive. Like he puts out a lot of content and a lot of information, but the guy's truly like a student of the game. So what's cool about him is he's still learning.
Right.
And those guys are always the ones you want to be around to kind of see what they're thinking now, and what they're not releasing, because he knows a lot about things like creative financing, investing without cash or credit, and that stuff is pretty cool. So I definitely want to do a sit down with him.
Yeah, and I can actually say it is worth it, because I had the pleasure once, quite a few years ago, to do this. And if you're serious about it, what I can say is he still to this day oftentimes attends real estate conferences,
Hmm.
and he's invited as either a keynote speaker or for a particular topic. But at least for as long as I've been around, he always takes the time to stay overnight most of the time, or even several days, and then he has like a big dinner table that people can join, or he's hanging out somewhere, just if anybody has a question, you can, like a normal person, approach him. So I had, and I didn't even have to pay extra. It was just they had these huge tables, and each table had one of kind of like the gurus on the table, and you pick the one you want it to be, and you've got to be early, obviously, but then you have dinner and have the conversation. So if you're really serious about it, I would highly recommend find out which conferences he attends, and you can just
Yeah, tap in.
So last
Yeah,
question is, if you had a time machine, Brian, could go anywhere, where would you go and buy?
I would be right here, right now, guys. Like really, if I with the time machine, I would be right here, right now. I think the opportunities that we have right ahead of us are going to be pretty epic, and it's just about staying tapped in and seeing those opportunities. Whenever you feel like a recession is happening, or these things, most millionaires are made after that recession, with those different buying opportunities. So definitely take advantage of the now, and for all of us, we'll all be more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. I would personally, if I had the choice, not go very far, but a little bit ahead, because I want to see, especially in relation to what we just talked about, if like Optimus, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, that Tesla is developing in 5 or 10 years, if that could be the majority of the boots on the ground.
Yeah, no, I know. Absolutely. The real estate robots are definitely taking over.
Yeah, and see, the cool thing on those guys would be that you wouldn't have the turnover, right? They wouldn't leave.
Yeah, and it'll work 24/7.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but that would be pretty inhumane. But you could theoretically, they can learn everything, right? They can do electric and plumbing and masonry and what have you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just saying it because I'm so excited to see the gains in efficiency. If you think about that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Systems will become everything because
exactly.
the know-how will just be programmed in. So it will be systems and efficiency.
Exactly. Well, we're totally aligned. We both love cash flow and we love on how to make it. So, Brian, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.